This is StoryRobot. Welcome to r/Tales from the Front Desk. Our story of today is, we have a reservation for 40. No, you don't. After a racial abuse and domestic incident I requested for a transfer. The main reason I wanted to leave nights was because we couldn't get any reliable night porters and I spent 70% of my night shifts alone with a sleep-in porter, basically a member of staff or management who stayed in one of the rooms to sleep whilst I did all the work, which included the setting up of conferences in the restaurant for breakfast. It was a legal requirement that there are at least 2 members of staff on shift in case of emergency. The sleep-in porter was not getting paid overtime, so technically was not working. The general manager understood why I wanted to leave nights, and did say he would make good on his promise to get me transferred. I thought this was an opportune time to transfer as we didn't have an official reception manager, as yet again the hotel cut corners and promoted the assistant reception manager as the original reception manager was still on maternity. Then we eventually got additional unskilled staff to run reception. This made my life even more hell on nights for a few weeks as they did not know the concept of banking. This one receptionist had literally put her entire takings of the day through Opera as Visa and nothing else, including the cash she took. It took me hours to figure it out. I told the reception manager what she had done and carbon copied in the accountant, and lo and behold, the following evening the exact same thing happened again. The main problem was the assistant manager befriended the staff, seeing they were all about the same age and wasn't seen as an authority figure. It was planned that I was to come in as the Iron Fist in a velvet glove to restore some sort of order to the reception team. In hindsight, I honestly wish I didn't bother, as I didn't know it then, but I had it so much better on the night shift. Just as I had problems going into the night shift, I did with the day shift. Firstly was the old chestnut of not having anyone covering my current duties, then having to train someone during the Christmas period. The busiest period for any hotel. I literally pulled miracles to get this done amongst all the functions and lack of night porters throughout December, and literally thought I had this nailed. Boy, was I wrong. In mid-January a series of things went horribly wrong for me to the point I thought I was cursed. Completely unannounced, the then GM decided to resign, giving 2 weeks notice, and he had no direct replacement. It turned out he was forced into it for blowing 3 months' budget on agency staff during Christmas, and making inappropriate comments to the underage staff at the Christmas party, which then got reported to HR. The night manager was going on holiday, which was agreed upon at his interview, and as we had no one to cover, it was up to me to cover his night shifts. Still no problem, I thought. After this hurdle, that will be it. I kept telling myself that this was my last weekend on nights for the foreseeable future. I still think about the time I thought that and laugh. Come the Saturday morning of my last night shift before my official transition to day shift, the interim reception manager has a seizure and collapses inside the reception office, hits her head hard on the safe to the point she eventually had to get airlifted to the nearest city hospital to see a specialist, as it turned out she had undiagnosed Crohn's, as they couldn't figure out what had caused her seizure in the first place. Of course, with my luck, we no longer had a GM, as he had taken the weekend off before leaving, effectively leaving me with not having a general manager or reception manager during the weekend, and now with no one who could use Opera in the entire building but me until the next receptionist arrived at 1 p.m. Bear in my mind I had started at 10 the previous night. The receptionist who was starting at 1, contact details weren't in the staff folder, as it hadn't been updated since the old reception manager had left, and all the new staff telephone numbers were stored on the interim reception manager's phone, which I had no access to as she was on her way to the hospital. So, with no choice, had to continue onwards until 1. This was my introduction to the day shift. To cut this long story short, I learned a valuable lesson here and got all the staff numbers. The next Monday they introduced me to the interim GM. It was now February. We had a meeting as soon as he arrived, and as it was clear there was no real reception manager, as it seemed the new reception manager wasn't coming back anytime soon, and by default, I was now it. Didn't get a pay rise, just the title. The main discussion revolved around the next big hurdle which the hotel faced, which was the next race week, which was a month away. For support whilst I got everything organized, as I did not receive a real handover, they arranged for another reception manager from a sister property to aid me for a few weeks, as they could not find a replacement for a reception manager right away. I must add that race week in my town is booked a year in advance by most people. By February there is little to no hope of getting a room in this town. The story. It's now the last week of February. I am now in control of reception, doing rotas, double-checking all bookings for race week, sending guests personalized messages from the last time they were here to try to upsell, and chasing payments for rooms to finalize bookings. All is well. We are overstaffed on reception. The reception manager that came from the other property had to go back to her neighboring city, as she too was affected by the fallout of our race week, and she saw I had things under control and things were going smoothly, or so I thought. It is also announced that our reception manager is coming back just after race week. The race week finally arrives, day 1. Guests are coming to the hotel in droves, dropping off their luggage and going to the races. We are handing out keys in pre-packaged welcome envelopes. We had planned for this. Porters are taking luggage to rooms. The champagne was flowing. We were a well-oiled machine. We were down to our last few check-ins. Suddenly 2 executive buses pull up in front of the hotel. No alarm bells here yet. We thought nothing of it for a few minutes, as it wasn't uncommon that corporate guests hired buses to get to the race course from the hotel. That was until who I assumed was the leader of the group came up from off the bus to me and said, "Hi, we have a reservation for 40. Thinking this was a restaurant booking, as we did have a few functions on that morning, I asked, "Can I take your name please?" She then proceeded to tell me her name and company name. I reply saying, "I will be back shortly. I will check your booking with the restaurant." I'm about to walk away from my desk to find the function coordinator, where she stops me dead in my tracks and says we have a reservation for 40 people, 20 rooms. I crack a fake smile and laugh and say, "No you don't," thinking this was all a joke. My laughter quickly turns into dread when she pulls out a binder stacked with paperwork and passes it to me and says our confirmations are in here. Taking the binder, I hastily open it and cannot believe what I am seeing. A full printed conversation email trail with my old manager, who was still on maternity, their booking complete with deposit receipts and confirmations for rooms booked. However, I noticed that these rooms had numbers and not names. All of the rooms in the hotel were individually named, so I looked at this information in disbelief, now knowing full well what my manager had done. She had most definitely booked them in last year in March as a block booking, gave the company a competitive price, took said deposit but did not allocate any of the rooms onto the system, instead put them in a postmaster account, or virtual room, to hold their deposits in until said deposits were paid in full, then transferred to real rooms. It turns out that this company did actually pay the remaining balance with the events manager during what was supposed to be the week just before the reception manager went on maternity. However, the reception manager called in sick for her last week. It was handed over via email but never picked up by the assistant manager, as she was literally now left running a department unexpectedly, so the email slipped in between handovers and was not chased up. With my heart well and truly sunk, I go to the computer to check if the information I saw with my own eyes is correct, and lo and behold, in March the previous year there is an unallocated block booking that was paid for, and because it was never allocated it therefore expired a few months later. And obviously because race week was so popular, it didn't take at all long for the hotel to fill. I grasp at straws, as by now the woman is staring a hole into my head. The only thing that I manage to blurt out is, "Can I see your group booking confirmation?" To which she explains she can't provide me with it, but the paperwork in front of me does show that they have a booking. I stall, saying, "I apologize, this information looks correct, but I can't seem to find your booking, bear with me." I get up and go into the reception manager's office behind me and frantically dial the acting GM's telephone number, only to be met with his phone ringing out, as it was his only day off that week and he was going to the races as he had never been. I'm almost in tears at this point. I was waiting for the ground for me to swallow me up. I could not believe I was in this situation. I froze and looked at the window, contemplating to jump out and run away. I did not want to go back outside to face the music of a problem I did not create. I was a night supervisor who was given the night manager's job, moonlighting as the reception manager. I was rudely interrupted by another receptionist at the door. "The lady outside wants to talk to you. Why are you taking so long?" It was time to bite the bullet. With nothing more to lose, I go out and smile, saying, "I'm ever so sorry for keeping you waiting. Unfortunately there has been a mix-up. The agreement that you have in your binder is with our old reception manager, who is actually on maternity leave, not wanting to pass the blame, but she did not allocate you any rooms and subsequently we are fully booked." Before she can say anything, I quickly add on, "I was trying to get my general manager on the line. Unfortunately I can't get hold of him at this moment in time. Please do take a seat. I will try my best to get him here as soon as I can. Would you care for a drink whilst you're waiting?" She blankly stares at me in disbelief. "What do you mean you are fully booked? We booked this last year." I go on to explain again, "Unfortunately the agreement you had with our reception manager is void. Being 100% honest, she did not allocate you any rooms. I have only been on reception for a month. The best I can do at this moment in time is give you a full refund, but unfortunately I can't do anything more than that without my general manager's authorization." Surprisingly, the woman understands the situation. She wasn't happy, but she wasn't angry at me as well. I think the realization dawned that she herself had booked these rooms and now had to face her company and boss to tell them they had no rooms. I was now preparing for the arduous task of sorting this mess out by myself. The duty manager's diary does not cover scenarios such as this. Moments later, almost miraculously, to describe it like an angel sent by God, the interim GM had appeared as he was just on his way out to the races. "I forgot my wallet, did you ring?" he says. I pounce on him and I explain the situation to him in front of the woman. He then took her to one side, then instructed me to call all of our sister properties to see if we could honor the booking elsewhere, then went over to the woman to explain the situation. It took a good 2 hours, but we eventually managed to outbook all 40 people to various hotels in the neighboring counties. We took a loss as they had technically paid us and we had promised them all transport to and from the hotels they all stayed at each night, then arranged to have them picked up at their hotels to go the race course and back to our hotel for dinner. We also sent each and every guest we outbooked with a comp bottle of house champagne. The crisis was averted, and I didn't have to deal with any of the backlash from this as it wasn't my fault to begin with. If it wasn't for the interim GM forgetting his wallet, I wouldn't have known how this story would have turned out. Thank you for watching. Error. Problem detected. Not enough subscribers. Please subscribe, like and comment.